Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and it is time for the super happy fun time. Half hour, I'm not sure, but we're going to have a great time. Listen, I'm going to be so positive in these first 3 minutes. Let me tell you, I am just so happy about how YouTube is curating content for everybody and deciding who is monetized and who is not. You're the best, YouTube! Guys like Dan Dix, obviously, you need to take them out. They're very troublesome, and people like Ford Fisher who, just get into the mix where others won't. You need to take them out, and the thousands of other people that you've reported on. I'll be honest, I thought that when I saw this news, it was going to be over for me today. When I did my last 7 of 8 videos in the last, I think about 30 hours, maybe a little bit more, maybe 35 hours, are demonetized. Let's go through the subjects, okay? I'm not an authoritative source on Nexium. Not allowed to talk about that. Not allowed to talk about the Dutch euthanasia story, which we corrected today. Not allowed to talk about that. Not allowed to talk about the new investigation into Epstein. Not allowed to talk about that. We can't talk about the fact that Alabama just passed a law for castration of offenders. I won't say the other word because it's Happy Fun Time Hour. Randy Quaid, can't talk about him, even though he was trending. Apparently, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm allowed to make the correction on the youth and whatever. Then I can't report on a candidate who is a admitted you-know-what. That's what we're calling him these days. Or Dennis Hassard, who is a you-know-what. Or Ed Murray, who is a you-know-what. And then even my video when I was stunned to find out that, yes, here are the headlines, folks. YouTube to remove thousands of videos, The Verge and Vox just celebrating everything, that also got demonetized. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I know that I'm definitely looking into other platforms, but I am joined by a very intelligent man for this Happy Fun Time Hour. We're going to take your questions on just about everything. I had planned on just talking to him about Bilderberg this weekend, his thoughts on the list, his thoughts on everybody there. I was planning on talking about Iran and the conflicts there, and we'll get there. But with somebody like Dan Dix, who you and I have known for quite some time, has his channel completely demonetized. He's not going to be in the headlines. Instead, they're going to focus on Crowder and Vox. How do you feel about this during this super happy fun time hour, Richard Andrew Grove?
I think it's awful and atrocious that in this day and age that we allow censorship to just run amok. Dan Dix doesn't do anything to threaten average everyday people. He speaks truth to power. He gets research and artifacts, and he's an independent media creator. He's been doing it for like 10 years. There's no reason to demonetize him. He's not a threat to average people. What he's a threat to are they, them, those who like to have big institutions and working groups like Bilderberg and put out agendas for people's future. Planning the future is not freedom. That's what people should get. All these working groups, all these conferences, whether it's DC Strategic Trends Program or Bilderberg or Trilateral Group or Commission, all these different working groups, they're planning a future in their image without us in it. If you read their plans, you're not in it. Your family's not being, but they're telling you the trends. And if you look at the DC strategic trends from 2007, we're in the middle of that. They projected the future, like we're in the middle of those trends. Immigration crises, concerns about vaccination. There's all sorts of things going on right now that have been planned out to the nth degree. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. We don't have to look at it morally. I'm just saying it exists. And these people, this is the plan that they're following. So if you want to stay ahead or outside of that plan, you should at least make yourself aware. Dan knows better than, he knows as well as we do. And I'm looking forward to seeing Dan turn the corner, become self-reliant, become resourceful outside of having things monetized by the people that want to see freedom censored in this country and all over the world.
So what's the next platform, my man? I know there are a lot of choices out there right now, right? It's DTube, DLive. You got BitChute that's been around. I actually did an interview with them with H.A. Goodman quite a while ago. I think they have a lot of stuff pretty well together out of all the other platforms. However, when you saw Gab just get like a snickernuts of Twitter's popularity, they went right after them. BitChute has not gotten that type of negative press yet. But the other sort of that is, if you're going to put all this time into content, if you're going to put a full-time day's work in, you kind of need cash. And, how do you do that other than, the Patreons that will ban you, Subscribe Star that at one point was banning people and then they said, oh, come back. I mean, what are the platforms that you see are coming up that people can get on now?
Well, I'm kind of platform agnostic, and I try to interact directly with as many of my subscribers as possible outside of Patreon and all those other places. So I will make them an offer directly, and then they can directly interact with me in coaching, mentoring, becoming a student in my course, these sort of things, right? So there's a high quality of interaction that you're not going to get through any of those websites anyway. So IPFS, Interplanetary File Shift System, file sharing, that I think is more of the future, where it's going to be all of us having our own outposts outside, but we reach back into those traditional mainstream YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and use them as assets instead of being used by them as liabilities. What I saw was, because I didn't monetize up until 2 months ago, because I wanted to do live streams on Patreon because Mance Raider was doing, I said, how do you do that? And then I had to turn on monetization. Prior to that, a lot of people had turned on monetization on all these aspects, and you and Luke and Dan are just a small fraction of the people that were making a living fully just from their infrastructure, right? So I lectured at the Porcupine Freedom Festival 2 years ago on how to get off of that, because I saw the censorship coming and that they're basically giving you guys an income so that you became dependent on that. Then they can take it away, and then you're like, woe is me. And a lot of guys went out of business because they didn't have like the persistence, the tenacity, and the enduring legacy of integrity of the consistency that you guys have, right? So you were able to weather the storm. But if there's another heavy attack right now coming, it's hard to be fortified enough to remain independent. So I think it's a good opportunity for all of us who recognize, like, yeah, this is all happening to us. If it happens to you, it's going to happen to me. If it happens to Dan, it's going to happen to us. So we should, figure out other ways to communicate in a meaningful, substantial way with our audience as part of the solution, because we do spend a lot of time talking about the problems. And I think the what they want is what they're getting. They're getting a docile population that is very malleable, that has learned helplessness, that has low self-esteem, and that self-esteem only comes from conspicuous consumption or provincial authority, a teacher, a boss, or whatever. So if you teach people to outgrow that status quo, then you're standing in an area where it's a lot less easy for them to manipulate and control. And yes, there's still going to be a herd. Not everyone's going to want to learn their way out of this. Some people are just fine like this. They like the leadership and the, lemmings off the cliff. But for other people, there's other layers of freedom to be explored. And I think now is the prime time, and people are motivated to get into it.
Well, here's the deal. One of the things that the technology has brought to us, right, is the ability we're live streaming right now. And we're actually,
totally.
I'm not trying to put anybody off to another platform, but I can triple broadcast, right? So I can choose 3 right now in high definition from my home that potentially has a global audience. It's not a broadcast network. It's not local news. It's not just my community, the counties around me. It's not a city. It's literally globalized information in the palm of my hand in a setup that I've acquired over the years now that probably has about $3,000 to $4,000 in value. Probably put it together even cheaper. And that is a huge ability. The camera in front of me is a little bit bigger than my thumb. Okay? And that's with the plastic and everything else. That's my point. So in that respect, I don't think they can stop us. But like you just said, unless you have a mainline form of income and you've become dependent on it, no, you do have to find something else to do. And here's the thing. When I look at these headlines, for instance, on Vox, and they're just so damn gleeful. And by the way, guys, it's the Happy Fun Time Hour. Just want to let everybody know we're having a great time here. YouTube
Gotta have a sense of humor during all this despotism and tyranny. This is how we conquer.
Listen, man, if you could see me, I'm in a hot room. It's summertime. My electric with all this stuff, I can't put an AC unit in here. I'm literally in a tank top with my ghetto tattoo showing, greased up, trying to be as professional as possible. But it doesn't matter, right? Who knows how long I'll be here? Because apparently content from Nazis, can't say that word, HOLOCAUST deniers, and now it's SE Hook skeptics, not deniers or whatever. And these things worry me because when I put together a video, for instance, debunking Alex Jones's deposition and showing how terrible it is. I don't know if you caught that one, but basically,
I know I did. I did catch that.
It didn't get a lot of views, but I would hope it gets more views because you know why? it exposes a lot of different important things. By the way, that's behind me, won't be recommended to you, but please watch it because it's about a 40-minute breakdown of the available evidence after Essie Hook. Okay, and within the first, I think, 13 to 14 months. Some of that stuff was out there a little bit earlier, but then you had all that stuff. And I'm telling you, and like I said in the video, I was in contact with a lot of alternative media. I'm not going to name names, but InfoWars was one of them. Never direct contact with Alex Jones. Do not want to end up in court. Want to make that abundantly clear. However, there was plenty of information out there. And then years later, spouting the nonsense that got out there. I'm not allowed to make a video showing these facts. I'm not out there doxing families, talking nonsense, disrespecting people. I'm looking at a historical event that is now literally almost 7 years old, and I can't say anything. 9/11 is in here. So now in the Dark Overlord documents, we got 3 deep layers on that. I've done extensive research on that. You read the documents with me. I show you what the numbers of the files are so you can go watch them. We got the FOIAs of the Israelis I did a huge 40-minute piece on. So now...
That's what I asked you about the other day.
Yeah, and I did that, and I planned on doing a follow-up, but apparently I'm not an authoritative source. And if I'm skeptical of the information I'm reading from the FBI... I don't know what's going to happen anymore on this platform. It's madness, bro. And why? Because I'm not CNN or Fox. I guarantee all 8 of those subjects that we talked about earlier, they're monetized for them.
Yeah, for sure. I have a premiere this weekend. I'm speaking at the Red Pill Expo, but during that, I'm premiering a USS Liberty interview that I did with the only Marine to survive the attack. I filmed it last summer. It's like 3 hours long, but this is the anniversary of the USS Liberty attack, June 8th. It was 1967. Obviously, it's been 52 years, I think, since then, or 51 years. And I'm worried that I'm going to get out of speaking at the expo and find I don't have a YouTube page anymore because he's just recounting the history. He's an intelligence officer. And I used the favor. I asked a favor of the services of Brock West, who does Corbett's editing, and I said, "This is a really great interview. Do you have time to put some B-roll on it and make it a lot more watchable? Because what he says is very, very powerful." And then, just as I was making those decisions, the Dancing Israeli FOIA documents came out, and that's why I texted you, because I wanted to see what you thought on it. And you're like, "I already dropped a 40-minute video, bro. Go check it out."
And you know what? I like having those opportunities. Listen, I feel blessed the last couple years. I want to make that very clear. I've only been working for We Are Change for full-time anyway since last March, but still that's, coming up on, I think, 15, 16 months. And about 7 months before that, what was it? Yeah, I think I did work from June on when we met up at the Bilderberg meeting of 2017. And you know what was surprising, and I'm going to bring this up right now, is our Bilderberg coverage, although it may have been curtailed or whatever, it stayed monetized. I'm showing people my Bilderberg stuff, but, from talking about Kushner to Kissinger to Pompeo, I didn't have too many problems with that. We did not have a problem with that across the board at all. But when I talk about, for instance, George Nader being arrested on CP charges that stem from a January 2018 incident that they indicted him on in April, and he's the key witness and a footnote in over 4 dozen parts of the Mueller report, well, that's a problem. That's a problem, and that gets demonetized. I don't understand it. I can't talk about how there's mountains of evidence against R. Kelly and the FBI has had these tapes for literal decades almost. That gets demonetized. What in the mother? The guy, listen, it's not a secret, YouTube. I got news for you. There's a Lifetime series. There's a wedding certificate and annulment with Aaliyah. There's the actual video that made it out into the public, the first one. And then there's the other mountain of police and FBI reports out there. So when I talk about it for 15 minutes and I'm displeased that he's not in a jail cell, that's not appropriate. Get the fuck out of here.
Not only that, but it's not like you just changed your tune and came to these observations. I remember the first time that I talked with you, or probably the second time, back in 2006, when Lisa and I came out to your spot with all the loose change guys. You were talking specifically about Franklin cover-up, like Jeff Gannon, Vatican pedophiles. Like, you were on their trail. And I was like, Really? And you're like, yeah, look into it. Because I wasn't raised Catholic, so I didn't know too much about that whole thing. I just studied like the Jesuits and hadn't made it up to modern history and all those scandals, right? So, um, the other thing I'll always credit you for is the Ahmad Salam tapes, because we talked about that, and you're like, bro, the tapes are out there. You can listen to them. And I remember going home, I was like, I got to see if those tapes are still available. And I did, and I listened to them. And it was even more shocking.
Listen,
So,
and that's the
yeah.
thing, that's
You've been dropping
obfuscated.
nuggets for years.
Obfuscated for exactly. That's in my 2010 film. I think they came out in like 2007, 8. Excuse me, sometime after we done Loose Change Final Cut. And in him, it is clear. I'm sick of hearing it. Without the FBI and Ahmad Salam, they don't build the bomb. He clearly states he's the one that built the bomb. He feels bad that it went off. That's all I need to hear. Because there's a lot of people out there that say, Ramzi Youssef finished the bomb or whatever. Listen, they put the damn thing together with the supervision of the FBI, and the guy who did it, who was an Egyptian army officer, was so suspicious of the people he was working for, he bugged his phones as an insurance policy that paid off in the end.
And the call that he has, Ahmad Salam talks with FBI agent John Antisev.
Yes.
And Salam is trying to collect on his business expenses from the terrorist attack. So they're arguing, they're haggling over expenses. And then Ahmad Salam's like, hey, yeah, why did you guys not give me a fake bomb? You said you were going to give me a fake one, and you guys used the real one, right? It's a really interesting conversation of, it's a part of American history.
Yes, and
it's available on Wikipedia in the footnotes.
And the last time I actually, I like to dig stuff up. So the last time I'm actually able to find like a media interview with the guy is he did an interview in the late 90s for Playboy, where he was still working for the FBI after this and basically going and giving seminars and speeches to different places. So
you're talking Antisev?
No, I'm talking Ahmad Salam. Because,
he was on InfoWars at one point.
Did he really? Ahmad Salam on InfoWars?
Yeah. However, now we can claim anybody was on InfoWars because they deleted the whole YouTube catalog of 35,000 interviews. So we don't know. But yes, I'm pretty sure that.
Well, they should have the
Alex
MP3 archives over there at least. If not, I remember
sure
they had the digital tapes. I don't, who God knows what's going on in that operation. I'm very critical of it recently, especially. Let's move on to that. With this whole clown show with real people now getting banned. And obviously that operation now telling everybody that the Bill Ayers leftist plan is the New World Order plan and martial law is okay. We can call for that. And we should go attack Venezuela with a coalition of the willing. Sounds familiar. And cut it off at the head. We need to cut it off at the head. Did videos on all that. Now that we've gone there.
So you're saying that InfoWars is back and all that?
Oh, dude. I've got videos of all those quotes. Those are direct quotes. Direct quotes. Yeah. We need to build a coalition. During that whole debacle where Guaido said the military was coming in, he went on a rant saying we needed to invade Venezuela with a coalition because it was right on our border, that we need to cut it off at the head, and that's it. I couldn't believe it. He called for martial law twice. He also said that he talked to Q personally. So we could continue with the things that operation needs to be called out on. I'm sorry. Listen, guys, here's the deal. When you're as powerful and popular as, say, O'Reilly was when I was trying to bring out 9/11 Truth and you're spitting that bullshit, I'm coming for you. I'll fucking Skywalker that ass. I'm telling you right now, no, we ain't doing it. I'm not. It's insanity. And then this weekend, Saturday, you can see Rob Dew kind of attacked me recently, but, what are you going to do? I pointed out on Saturday morning that there was not one story on InfoWars on the main page about Bilderberg, that they had whitewashed that Kushner and Pompeo were going against this leftist plot. Stacey Abrams was there. So dude comes at me, he says, well, who's talking about Stacey? We did a whole video and I had a thumb. We did a whole video on Stacey Abrams in Bilderberg. On Saturday, you didn't interview Charlie Skelton. You didn't talk to anybody that was down there. You cut Luke Rudowski out of the pictures when you showed Dan Dix. Like, it's sad, guys. What happened? What the fuck happened? Because this ain't no leftist plot. And you know what is still out there? Bill Ayers, there's been a lot written about him, right? Tarpley's a smart guy. He wrote about him extensively in his expose of Obama. I'm going to tell you right now, he tore Jones up in that interview. Tore him up. Every time Jones tried to make a point, Ayers was all over him. For instance, the big thing that everybody goes to is that, well, they were going to they were going to blow stuff up, take over, and then put people in re-education camps. And an FBI agent claimed to be in a meeting where they were all there and talking about that. And when Jones brings that up, Bill Ayers looks at me and goes, that never happened. He goes, who's FBI, Alex? What, the FBI who investigated Oklahoma City? You can't have it both ways, man. And he's right. You can't have it both ways. Period. Amen. And so, to me, that's not even an alternative media operation anymore. You know, you look at what we cover at We Are Change, News for a Change, and now my personal channel. It's the real deal, biometrics, surveillance, slave state that's being built. It's real globalism. It's real both sides. It's real military-industrial complex shit. And I'm not going to tell you Roger Stone's a hero, because he ain't.
Come on, he was boys with Nixon. He's got him tattooed on his back. Doesn't that make him pass muster for you?
You know, again, you know, they whitewash the fact he's a lobbyist for Nexium. Meanwhile, Gillibrand's father, who she's running for president, she's a senator in my state. Her father is in Nexium at the same time as Stone. He gets his first cousin out of the Nexium Success Program, right? Then marries her. So Gillibrand's stepmom is also her father's cousin. And they both did time in Nexium, and she doesn't know what's going on there when she's talked about it. Talk about horse shit. And, you know, this president to me hasn't delivered. Let's be honest. And here's a point I want to talk to you about. The deep state, right?
Yeah, let's talk deep state.
Let's talk deep state, because this president guaranteed us we were finally going to get those JFK documents twice. He promised them once, couldn't deliver 6 months from now. I'm telling you, it's going to be great. We're going to get them. We're going to find out. We're going to do it. And then finally at the last hour, no. If you can't reveal the deep state from a 1963 assassination of the president, 65 plus years later, do you think you're going to be able to reveal the deep state and fight them with people like Bolton and Pompeo next to you? I want to fucking barf.
Rex Tillerson?
Tillerson. How about Conrad Black and his pardon after the fact, probably so he can travel and get into business deals? That's all that means. You know, he wasn't in jail.
That's an Epstein Island pardon, probably.
So
it's a poker game, IOU.
So deep state me, bro. Deep state me good.
All right, so the JFK documents, you're not going to see those for at least another 10 years because there's Anglo-American intelligence involved, and the British have 75-year top secret security. So they're not going to release things that involve British intelligence. They're going to remain classified even beyond American intelligence's involvement, right? Deep state. Peter Dale Scott is the originator of the term in the 70s. Though study of the deep state in various other contexts go back. And what you're talking about is a group of people who remain behind the scenes independent of whatever administration, Republican or Democrat, right foot, left foot, is attached to the same body. That's like the deep state. So they are rich and powerful families behind the scenes who have traditionally used corporations, intelligence agencies, and governments as their proxies so that they don't get guillotined. That's the long short of it.
Now, what power do you think that they have currently? Because to me, I don't see, I see there's factions. I see that there's people that are fighting amongst one another. But overall, I see them working in the same conjunction with one another. You look at what's going on in Syria. Oh, the leaked OPCW report isn't on Fox News, and it's not on MSNBC, and it's not on CNN. You'd think something like that might be able to take down a president if you're so worried about it. But when it comes to war and the military-industrial complex in Yemen and Somalia and the Sudan, they don't ever talk about it. And now we have this shady shit going on in the Gulf with Iran, where 4 drones apparently attacked pipelines and ships. 2 of them, I believe, what were the UAE ships. No one dies. No oil is lost. But we bombed the fuck out of Yemen right afterwards. Like, you know, because Iranian forces are there. And it obviously was Iranian Revolutionary Guard or their proxies or sympathizers or militants.
Well, and the complexity is Iran has an interesting history over the past 70 plus years. Let's go back 100 years. British Petroleum comes from Iran. That's the Anglo-Persian, Anglo-Iranian oil company that became BP. So if you go to BP and you look it up, it used to be the Anglo-Iranian oil company. That's British intelligence. That's British, finances over there. Now, there's a couple different things happen after World War II. America totally gets in bed intelligence-wise with its former enemy, the British Empire, and inherits through bases for destroyers a whole bunch of bases around the world. Right, so they do this deal with the British, and now America is basically like the property managers for the British Empire. Right, so they retire to the back of the scene. We got the newest weapons. We're out there enforcing using these bases, and you've got this whole situation that has developed. So, in the 50s, there was the CIA created. It was 47. In the 50s, the CIA has one group of people hunting Nazis, and then they have another group of people bringing in the Nazis. The other group of people that are doing Operation Paperclip and MK Ultra, it's OPC, it's Office of Policy Coordination, which was a State Department injection into the CIA. That's where the Anglo-American establishment brought its power and splits the intelligence agency. Now they have the CIA playing the new great game, which was a continuation of what the British were doing with their cousins, Russia and Germany. They're playing a great game, but they got killed off in World War I. They replaced those with big governments, right? So they took out the royalty, and now you bring it up to the 20th century. American and British foreign policy has been like lockstep, Iran, Iraq, all these things. So you come up to the Shah of Iran, 1953, Operation Ajax. That's Kermit Roosevelt from the American side. He's a grandson of, I think, Teddy Roosevelt, working with the British MI6 guys. So there's a whole bunch to that. But when you get to 79, when you have the Ayatollah Khomeini and the other coup, that goes on with the hostages for 444 days. That's the CIA inside the CIA. So the one inside the CIA is a multinational, almost like NATO group. It's not just one country. So tying that history back to 9/11, it's like Operation Gladio. Mm-hmm. When you bring it back to 9/11, it's not just one country or one group. There's a whole bunch of people. It's murder on the Orient Express. Everybody that participated had a hand in it, and that's how they all balance each other out. And then they went forward with, what was the coalition called for the Iraq War? Whatever they called that, Freedom Coalition. Right now, Coalition of the Willing?
Yeah, it was absolutely the Coalition of the Willing. It sounds like a girl you drag to the prom. Like, it's the Coalition of the Willing. She's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I'll tell you what. So you were just talking about how they work in conjunction, and I don't want to talk too much 9/11. God forbid. Obviously I'm a skeptic. We might get in trouble. But that is the best part, or a best example of a international intelligence operation. You funnel people in through Saudi Arabia, through proxies at the CIA and the consulate and all that other stuff. Then you have them train at U.S. bases. You have them looked upon and lived with FBI and informants. On top of that, Israeli intelligence is trailing them for some reason, and that's all over the place, but then they get rounded up. Then you also have Israeli intelligence on the inside of airport security with Huntley and ITCS. You could talk about Kroll and their relationship and the report that got destroyed, that we just found out that got destroyed through the Dark Overlord documents, in which basically they were saying, hey, there's big holes here. There's really big problems here. What in the hell is going on? You got Pakistan funding the hijackers after the fact, the ISI connection to Muhammad Atta. And then somehow, some way, you have the U.S. military conducting drills that not only mirror a lot of the events that happen, but have such catastrophic other things going on and other hijackings that they distract from the actual things that are happening. I mean, that's just the event that itself. Now, there's a new document that Zero Hedge has put out there, in which it's apparently a new Snowden leak. I'm always kind of hesitant, but I saw this, and basically it says, hey, we help in Israeli assassinations and vice versa. No kidding. We use proxy nations that are our friends for plausible deniability. It's hand in glove in many cases. Not all the time, but in certain instances, absolutely, Richard Andrew Grove.
Oh, for sure. And then the aspect about the Saudis, even if you just took the official story of 9/11, the hijackers from Saudi Arabia. Well, who are these guys? Oh, they're basically second-generation Arab Nazis. Well, who was working with them? Oh, Sinjin Philby of MI6, whose son was later Kim Philby, the communist spy mole, right? So there's like two generations of Philbys. And when you go back to the first one, they created Ibn bin Saud, like his whole like They made them the royal family. And the argument has always been that St. John, his name's Harry Bridger St. John Philby, that he was out of MI6 by the time he was working, but he really just went native undercover because he was still receiving an MI6 paycheck, and well after the time that I tracked him being a mentor and advisor to Ibn Saud. So even if you take the official story back, it goes back to covert operations, training proxy forces, and the best book, if somebody's really skeptical and thinking, oh, that's conspiracy theory. No, you read a book by Mark Curtis called Secret. What's it called? Secret Affairs. Britain's close collusion with radical Islam. Osama bin Laden had a headquarters in London in like 1996. They were grooming that entire group as a proxy. And why? Because I think we used to be a former enemy, and they're looking to take away any freedom that's left in this country to make sure that we capitulate and get on with this global empire, new world order business that they've been planning for 100 years.
Now, do we ever get there? I mean, old man Kissinger in a wheelchair, up there. We got the Builder boat this year for the first time. They're like prancing around, having champagne out in the open. They're going to a castle for dinner where Pompeo is giving a speech on foreign policy. I don't know, man. I know AI guys are there. You got Schmidt on one end. You got Thiel on the other.
I was going to say, wasn't it last time they were in Switzerland? It was Tim Schmidt and all these guys, the cyber overlords that were over there, like.
It's Eric Schmidt, but Schmidt wasn't on the list the last couple years. I suspect in 2017, 2018, he just wasn't on the list. I mean, that's steering committee level guy, and especially somebody that was very close to Clinton and the Democrats and that campaign and that mindset. And obviously being not only an executive at Google, but then the head of Alphabet and then stepping down to the board. Now he's just an advisor. You got to wonder why those moves are being made. And one of the guys, I'll show the audience here, but I picked this up in the dollar bin probably like 3-4 years ago. It is The New Digital Age, Reshaping the Future of People, Nations, and Business, and it is by Eric Schmidt and a man named Jared Cohen. Jared Cohen happened to be at the Bilderberg meeting this year. He also happened to be on the counterterrorism digital force and he's Council on Foreign Relations, come on. He worked under both Condoleezza Rice and Hillary Clinton while they were Secretary of State. Again, it's not a right-left issue. And I think that this guy is a very big power player that we're going to have to be watching in the near future. Peter Thiel level possibly.
I think that's an important point. It's not a right-left issue because Quigley said that they control the right and left and they use them against each other, and they're, like two ends of a vice. They just squeeze it tighter and tighter, and the public's in between the two wedge issues, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty much worked at this point. I mean, people, listen, I felt like they could have bombed Iran to Hades last week, and I think most people would have been apathetic about it. We certainly don't have people in the streets. I mean, I've got to get your opinion. What's about to happen out there?
I think they're going to continue to scale up Grand Theft World until the people who do see what's going on finally take the time and formulate communication to the other people and be like, look, what's going on here? People like yourself, myself, we've tried to do that over like the past 15 years. But I think there's people in our audiences that are going to make that breakthrough at some point. Because it's inevitable. The school system only has produced so many dumbed down people. There's a lot of other conscious people of all generations. It's not just like just millennials can't see what's going on. There's all generations that are now starting to be able to put two and two together, and the same old tactics on the other side are failing to work. Because basically, it's like this: let's say SJWs, liberals, they'll it's like tennis serve, 100 miles an hour. But once you learn how to hit the serve back and ask them a question they can't answer, game over. So you're only one move away from being able to take an advantage in these situations, but most people don't have the intellectual self-defense skills or the confidence that comes from competence in those skills to take a stand.
Well, I think you're dead right. And I think that's another point I'd like to make about the alternative media and where it's gone. For instance, instead of trying to make that point, reach out to that person on the other side of the aisle. What do we have? Wear my t-shirt, trigger a leftist, get it on video, put it on YouTube, and hopefully it goes viral. That's some fucking low-hanging fruit. What used to happen...
InfoWars plan?
Anybody. I mean, obviously it's retarded.
Well, I'm wearing your t-shirt. Don't confuse the audience.
Yeah, no, I see that, and I thank you for that. But I never said, hey, Go wear this to go get somebody angry and see if you can get someone to flip out on camera. Guess what? They're making the same wage as you. They got 90% of the same damn problems. They got a mortgage. They're paying their car insurance. They're picking their kids up from school. They're struggling, paying their health insurance, just like you. Why in the fuck are you picking a fight with them when what used to happen is the Rudy Giuliani's of the world, the Zbigniew Brzezinski's of the world, the Michael Bloomberg's of the world? The people that are real players would get asked uncomfortable questions, and that would go viral. That's some pretty high-hanging fruit. Why can't we do that? Why is that not being encouraged? And not only that, back in the day, you had to have a camera. You had to have a camera to do this shit. All right? You had to actually have a handheld camera, and you had to kind of plan it out. Now, you
had to bring it with you.
Yeah. You got 4K on 3 different lenses on the back in low light anywhere you go, and you're worried about triggering a leftist? Come on, man. Sad days, bro. Sad fucking days. And that shift, I don't know how it happened. I mean, listen, in a lot of ways, I blame myself. You know, I took some time off. I have to make a living. You know what I mean? I had a lot of jobs. You know, do threw that out. Told me to make some pizzas. Called me a cuck. I was like, I would hope that there would be a more nonpartisan insult, one. And two, yeah, I've made pizzas. I headed the video department at the largest Little League camp in the world, Cooperstown Dreams Park. They just started up. Made some great friends there. Went to a wedding last year. Stay in touch. Glad I know those people. Very happy times. Worked at a tech company that was pretty soul crushing, but I like the people there. Still keep in touch. Done a ton of things for money because I'm not afraid to fucking work. I would clean shit off the floor before I sold my soul to some ideology that I clearly don't believe in for monetary and power gain. But
most people don't think that through. They don't think it through. And if you read Aristotle's book on the soul, what you learn about the soul is it's your faculty of consciousness to be able to ask questions and find answers. And what you described 20 minutes ago is they're making it outlawed to ask questions. They will give you the answers. They are the authority. You have no right to learn anymore. That's a real slavery type of situation. That's a box you don't want to be in. And that's what they're creating for everybody else through the technocratic future using technocracy. You know, these are plans they've had in action since like the 1930s. And then Zbigniew Brzezinski comes along. He's like, here's this old plan that doesn't have a lot of but if we add computer technology, we could totally grab all that information that the Stasi and these Russians couldn't get, and they can do. That's what they're doing. That's why they have Facebook and these social networks, because they wanted to build this AI super data server farm. This was before Utah, but in order to train the AI, they need people's data. So while you're like, oh, I don't have anything left. I don't think I have anything to hide. That's people like, I don't care about the surveillance. It doesn't matter. You're helping to train the thing that takes away freedom from humanity.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. Like, exactly. Listen.
Yeah.
No one survives. I'm letting everybody know. We all meet it. It's over. None of us are getting out of this alive. What are you putting out there now that not only are you hopefully going to be remembered for, not only that your friends and family will admire you for, but to build a better place and world for those friends and family, for the people that you care about? Seriously, man, those are the real legacies that matter. I don't care if you're a movie star. I don't care if you were #1 on talk radio. All that's nonsense. That's footnotes in history. That's all that is. What did you do? And that starts with you and your family, and then your neighbors and your community around you. And the internet has allowed us to open that out to everybody. Why are we not reaching out to one another? That's what I don't understand. You know,
I think you're onto it though, but the reason people aren't reaching out is because they think other people are the problem, so they make the other the problem. Oh, it's the left. It's those. No, it's not. You start with yourself, and if you start with yourself, then you build out just exactly as you explained it. Those around you start to notice your culture of excellence, start to notice your integrity, start to notice you're bringing value to every situation, and then your friends and family, then your social network, your internet network, right? So there's like personal, professional, there's your internet. You can improve yourself beyond what schooling has like manufactured for everybody. And for most people, what they've done is amputated your curiosity and filled you up. It's like people don't know what they need to know, and what they know they don't need. That's the business plan of the school system. So the question is, yeah, excellent. What have you done today to outgrow that status quo? Right? Because I know I was ignorant yesterday because I've learned so much today, and I keep that helps me keep it real because I know I've learned so much every day that I must not have been that smart yesterday because I'm learning about right. I mean, so I just
And that's the other thing. I'm not out there and afraid to make mistakes. I'm a goddamn human
right.
being. I've made mistakes, guys. You know, for instance, you know that Dutch story, the euthanasia one that went out yesterday. Big. It was reported all over the mainstream media that a 17-year-old girl had been euthanized with the help of the Netherlands government for PTSD. Now, actually, it was denied, although she was allowed to just kind of like go off of life support. It was a confusing thing, but it was not state-sponsored. However, in 2014, they did rule that children as young as 12 could possibly get approved for government-sponsored end of life. Made that mistake, corrected myself. Not a terrible thing. I still hear Tomorrow's News Today parroting that in the Northwoods documents that they were going to shoot up movie theaters. No, they were not. I read I did an entire episode reading top to bottom, the entire Northwoods document. The closest thing that is was they talked about a Miami terror campaign and plastic explosives being set off throughout Miami, not shooting up a movie theater or schools or any of that. Hey, be a man. Act like you were wrong. Say, hey, I got it wrong. Not, oh, I was confused. No. You fucking didn't know what you were talking about. You got it wrong.
Yeah, chili that morning.
Dude. And that, I don't, you know what?
Deposition.
I'm not trying to make this into a fucking bash fest, but Jesus Christ. And, you know, I've already let go so much swearing. You know, the ironic thing is that I'm going to guess that, you know, that we're at about minute 40. I don't know how long you want to go, maybe 60 if you want to do it, but we're at minute 40. Just because the first 5 or 6 minutes were pretty tame and I was actually like happy go fun time, it doesn't matter I cursed a dozen times. This video is more appropriate than me talking about the possible castration of sex offenders in Alabama. I'm not allowed to do that. You know, it's a really odd world, and I'm trying not to self-censor so badly. However, you know, when I talk about the predators out there, when I talk about the Epsteins, the Spaceys, the Hasserts, you know, all these guys, I got to watch myself. You know, even with Keith Raniere and Nexium, we're talking about 12-year-old girls, 15-year-old girls. We're talking about connections to the kids of the former Mexican president, Carlos Salinas. We're talking about Bronfman smuggling in women all throughout the world on fake visas so they could teach toddlers across the world, not just across the country, in Mexico, in California, in the UK, at the Rainbow Cultural Garden, and also be sex slaves for Raniere. These are the kids. These are the people that are handling your kids and brainwashing them. And nobody else is kind of going like, what the hell's, why are we just focusing on the torture? Why are we focusing on just the Hollywood aspect? Come on.
I think people they're too comfortable with their Netflix and their video games, man. And reality is shocking to them. Like that's hard. Like that's real. And you and I have built up like thick skin over the years dealing with all the news and looking at these stories because they're not covered. And there are things going on out there that people should know about. In order to be a good parent and protect your children, you have to have an understanding of some of these topics. There's another topic that's censored out there. It starts with a P and it ends with gate. Mm-hmm. And there's ISA in there. I had looked into that because I was looking at the WikiLeaks. As soon as that came out, I was in there, right? So I was looking up the Lynn Rothschild, Hillary, XOXO, miss you emails, all that stuff. And then they came out, and next week's news today said there's an FBI sheet, and cheese pizza is code. And so I was like, I'm going to look that up. And sure enough, there is. It says FBI. And then at the bottom, it says source, WikiLeaks.
And by the way, that was the Daily Mail covered that in 2015, that whole PDF file, way before these things were leaked. It's absolutely true WikiLeaks document. I'm not sure about the cheese pizza angle, but what was there were the butterfly symbols, were the with the triangle symbols, and many of the other things that you found in these emails.
Right. So what I was getting to is, so I looked at the sources and it said FBI and it went to Wikipedia, and then you go to Wikipedia and it says their source was FBI. So it was a circular source. So I said that's dangerous. I'm not going to hang my hat on that. So I kind of like was neutral and said, okay, until there's identification, there's nothing to see there. I'm going to, continue to check it out, but I'm looking for that. So anyway, I had a friend of mine. He's a network administrator at a major university. I said, so you do the security, cyber crime, whatever's going on. He said, yeah. I said, who's the most interesting person you've busted? He said, there was this professor, and for years we were tracking him, and basically he's like, yeah, he was searching for CP, which of course means or cheese pizza, which of course means child porn. And so he describes this whole thing, and I said, had the guy ever been arrested before? He said, yeah, funny enough, the FBI had arrested him a couple years ago, but then they caught him the second time. I said, what happened the second time? He said, interesting enough, the guy ended up hanging himself. I was like, that's interesting. It's almost like the FBI busted him, started juicing him for pay blackmail, and at some point he couldn't make the payments, and they offed him, or he offed him, or whatever. But he was known, because my point was, dude, you think you're calling the FBI to bust these guys? The FBI, according to Reason Magazine, like a year and a half ago, documented how the FBI runs 23 undercover child porn sites as sting operations. But who's getting busted through those? So there's a lot to dig up on all that aspect that's outside of the hyperbolized versions of these stories.
Well, the
and
other
I
thing
think
is
it's awful that they're making it legal to ask questions, because if you guys can't answer the questions, then you have a problem too. It's not just the people asking questions.
Well, the Hassert case had an update 2 days ago. Hassert not in jail, never ever been charged with child abuse, had been abusing children since he was a gym teacher and wrestling coach. Earlier in the last couple of years, somebody came out and said while he was in 4th grade, he was taken into a bathroom by Hassert, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Just everything.
There's also the guy who called in on C-SPAN that one time.
Yeah.
One of his wrestling students.
Yeah, well, this
he
guy...
was Speaker of the House.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm about to get to, is that this guy, tried... He brought it all the way to court, still as a John Doe. But right now, and tried to, in conjunction with the man that is still suing him for all the money he owes him, because he kept his mouth shut until Hassert turned on him. The only reason this is even out there is because Hassert wasn't going to bite the bullet on what they thought was a money laundering operation. He said he was the victim and that he was being extorted by one of his sexual abuse victims, only he didn't mention that part. The police showed up at his house, and he's like, look, man, this is the deal. We have a written agreement. We have a written agreement. And that's when Hassert gets charged with like fraud. That's it. It's fraud, and he ends up doing 15 months, and he paid out $1.8 million. The guy's trying to get his other $1.7 million. And of course, Hassert's lawyer's claiming because he talked to federal authorities after they showed up at his house at the behest of Hassert, he shouldn't have to pay that off. This man was labeled a serial you-know-what by the judge. He is still walking around today. He's in the emails where he actually was a camp counselor with the Podesta boys at a place, what was it, Red Nose, or some nose camp. I actually had that on a video earlier today. So
that's just awful to think about.
And they're friends. Dudes. They're openly friends in these emails. Come on. Do you think somebody who was doing that to kids when he was a teacher and young stopped as he gained political power? One of the main guys that he lives with. That's why they
want that power. That's why people like him want those jobs.
And they gravitate towards
Biden.
them. Yep. Well, Biden just is so creepy on camera. It's hard to believe that more hasn't been said about that. But when you guys have guys like, for instance, Tom Foley, who never did any time, who headed up the Child Protective Act of 2006, went on the Chris Hansen show, praised him, and then gets caught with all of these emails to 14, 15-year-old pages trying to have sex with young boys. And who's in charge of whether they're going to look at that at the time? Hassert. So what does he become? Oh, he's just another conservative talk radio host now. It's been forgotten. He never went to jail. He never even tried. I mean, he went to rehab. You go to rehab with when Kevin Spacey I go to rehab. I need to get my drinking in order.
What's happening, Kevin Spacey?
Oh my goodness. Red Pill Expo coming up. I want to make sure that people check that out. It's in your neck of the woods in Hartford, Connecticut this weekend. Tell me about some of the other people that are going to be there.
All right. So Red Pill Expo is the 3rd year. It's hosted by G. Edward Griffin, who is, of course, the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island. And the keynote speaker is Robert Kiyosaki. He speaks at 6 o'clock on Saturday. I speak right before Robert. The day opens up on Saturday with Del Bigtree, who's a producer of Vaxxed. He speaks at 8:30 in the morning. And Friday night is everything you should have learned about money in high school but didn't, and it's G. Edward Griffin and Robert Kiyosaki teaching together. And I think it's at the Hartford Excel Center. So it's like they play hockey and basketball games there and stuff like that. So it's a serious conference center. It looks to be a lot of fun. I know I'm going to have a lot of fun filming and speaking and meeting. I think I have like 50 students that are coming from my autonomy course from as far away as Holland, Hawaii, Mexico, people from it's good to meet the folks that you see on the internet, and it brings a closer sense of community and helps people get a grip on the tangible aspects of life.
So guys, check it out. Believe me, I wish I could make it. I got the kids this weekend, obviously, and I'm gearing up to have the kids. I mean, they're out there right now. They're waiting for me to get done with this interview so I can take their tablets away, more than likely. We'll see. I don't know. Hopefully they're doing their math stuff. We got about 10 minutes, I'd say, before we wrap this up. Are there any subjects out there that you think that need to be covered right now, that you want people to take a look at, that aren't getting the due even in the alternative media, guys like me are missing?
Have you ever read the Dodd Report?
I mean, it sounds familiar from like 10 years ago. Am I wrong? Is that Chris Dodd?
Right. No. This is from 1954.
Okay, all right.
So there was an investigation into the nonprofit foundations, tax-exempt foundations, and doing un-American things. And so the United States Congress, House of Representatives had the Cox Committee in 1952, and then they shut it down. And then this guy, Carroll Reese of Tennessee, he opened it up. There was a guy who was in charge of he was a director of research to find out if these foundations, it was Carnegie Foundation, Ford Foundation, and Rockefeller Foundation. So Norman Dodd is this Wall Street, Yale grad, establishment guy. He's in charge of research. So he goes and interviews Rowan Gaither, who is the CIA head of the Ford Foundation. And he says, Mr. Gaither, the United States Congress would like to put, this investigation, and we would like to know what your directives are as the foundation. And Gaither says, Mr. Dodd, I could tell you this, but it'd be enormously, a hassle for us. So why don't I just tell you candidly, not on the record, what we're up to? And Dodd's like, fine. So Rowan Gaither says, it is our job to change the attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs of Americans such that they can be merged with the Soviet Union. In other words, to create a globalism through merging people of opposite ends of the economic spectrum in that case, right? Mm-hmm. So at that time, back in the 50s, Cold War had just started. People couldn't ever picture merging American life with the Soviet system. And yet today, we have people clamoring for the Soviet system, communism, that's all a good thing, collectivism, basically. So the Dodd Report is 17 pages, and it has some of the most, oh my God, unbelievable quotes about what they found out from the Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Ford foundations, and how the meeting minutes of the Carnegie Foundation for 1908 was like, how do we take over America? And the next year, it's like, well, how do we take over the State Department? And then right after World War I, it's like, how do we keep America in a wartime economy? And what they decided to do, how to handle that, is they have to take over education. So these groups, they, them, those, who have been named, in their own words, took over to shape this education system into one of schooling, which is indoctrination. And that's other people planning our futures. And I ask people, it's like, how's your future? Like, how's it working out right now? Are you thriving? Are you surviving? And don't you think after 15,000 hours of schooling plus another 4, 5, 6, or 7 years of college, you should know how to do more than one thing with excellence and be able to make a living? But most kids coming through aren't. And a lot of adults. I have students that are from 18 up to their 70s. Because there's still people today that are trying to pay off student loans that are retired. There's a whole bunch of indoctrination and indenturement to the system that's going on. And I think the easiest way to help people deal with it is to learn, first off, to unlearn the indoctrination, and then to start to add the useful skills that you need, starting with how to have a conversation, how to conduct an interview, how to schedule something and actually show up, and just the basics of integrity that are necessary to interact with other people without pissing them off, right? So, and then you just build high value skills on top of that, such that what you learn resides between your ears. It's not taxed. It can't be confiscated. You can take it to any country you want, and the principles and the strategies translate into any language. So I teach principles, methods, strategies, tactics, showing one how to become indispensable in a variety of situations so that people can raise their lifestyle from here to wherever they want to be realistically. I'm not telling you you're going to have a jet, but if you had a jet, you would probably have to have these skills in order to earn enough money to get a jet.
You mean they're not just going to make it in the lottery? They're not going to make the big mega billions that way? I mean, I think that people are just so enamored still with, I mean, I think it's changed a lot from just television to now this. It's almost they're enamored with themselves, the phone. Taking selfies, being on Snapchat, letting people know how awesome their Instagram life is, being in a bar, being at the park, being at the beach, being with their friends. You don't see a lot of people tweeting out them breaking like a new code or coming up with a new algorithm or, actual skills in life. There
break
are
out of
people.
the matrix.
I mean, it's
it's
gym selfies and food, and I'm having a good time with my friends. It's me, 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 and it's an artificial reality also in the sense that, that thing you see on Instagram, that's picture 22 of a series of like 7 or 8 times they've done that. All right,
so it's photoshopped, right? They put filters on them too. I don't take selfies. I don't take pictures of my food. I don't have a Facebook page, and I embrace technology such that if I misuse it or if I use it as everyone else does, it is a liability. Mm-hmm. So I always look for how can I use this technology in a way that brings people value and facilitates the communication that we all need, because these ideas exist, freedom exists. It's very important. And it took a long time for it to emerge in this world, but they can put it under in the next 10 years with technocracy and robots and algorithms, all the things they're working on. They got business plans to achieve their agenda. They're trying to rush it right now. It's kind of getting very obvious because they know people are waking up faster than their indoctrination system can carry them. So there's like a panic going on. And as their system ends, I say, well, you can be sad about that. That's the terrarium. Or you can learn how to be resourceful and self-reliant and cooperate with others and work in teams voluntarily and defend yourselves intellectually and physically against those who would take away your liberties. And that's the freedom curve going up. So as the old system crumbles under its own weight, it's inevitable that people will have to relearn how to plant a garden and do these sorts of things and grow your own food. And it's not that everyone has to do that. I'm just saying the more self-reliant and resourceful that we all become, the stronger we become as a community, as a family, as a nation, as a global population. Freedom hasn't spread far enough, but the people that it claim to have been spreading freedom have been doing it through violence, which is antithetical to the nature of freedom.
Richard Andrew Grove, I think I'm going to end it on that. Wait for me on the other side for me to end this so we can chat afterwards. We don't get to talk that often. Folks, if you're not subscribed, now's the time to do it. Please subscribe. Join the Burmis Brigade. Thumbs this video up. Share it. As I showed you, the last seven out of the last 8 demonetized. Dan Dix, totally and completely demonetized. News to Share, totally and completely demonetized. We are change. We're okay so far. I expect that we are probably next. When I see these kind of things on my personal channel, I'm also weary. However, we will figure out a way. I'm just too deep into this now. I love doing this. This is how I feel. I think that we should all be trying to communicate with one another better, reaching out to one another, not to be divisive, not to tell people how shitty they are or how they need to change, but how we can work towards a better tomorrow and have our differences in a civil manner. Thank you guys again, and I will see you on the flip side. Hold on, Andrew. Oh.